We wear our language. We're clothed in their meaning. We describe life through the words that we use, through the words that we choose, whether it's in our thoughts or in our conversation. It's all words. And in many ways, a word is a suggestion. I suggest to you that this is a die. And you agree, because we've all agreed that a cube with numbers on is a die. Everything in life is a suggestion, and we choose what to accept and what not to accept. The question is, what have you unconsciously chosen to accept that really isn't supporting you? And on a larger scale, moving from the I to the we, what have we accepted that is no longer supporting our community? The world around us is all a bit of a shambles. When you look around, I see the news, and it is a suggestion, because I know it's an opinion, it's biased. And so there's a suggestion that's nearly truth, or truth that we've all agreed. And then there's suggestion marketing, and marketing has become the new psychology. Anyone who studies psychology goes into marketing. It seems to be the natural progression. And so everything is created by narrative, because when the will and the imagination are antagonistic together, the imagination will always win, And so being sold a narrative, a story, we just get sucked in. And it seems so real. Everything seems so real. And we are pushed and threatened, and we have fear that we aren't going to be able to manage to fill up our fridge, or whatever those fears are. I walk into the newsagent and there's a TV in there broadcasting that someone's been murdered somewhere. You know, it's really tough to try and gain control of us as a sovereign being, to say, I am a sovereign being, I have a space around me, and I don't want suggestions just to come bombarding in that I have to take on board. I want to make them consciously. I mean, really, with this idea that everything is a suggestion, and that we can be manipulated by the psychology of marketing. We realize through history it is an episode of manipulation, and we, the people, have always been guided to blame someone outside of ourselves. Blame them, it's their fault. And we can be manipulated to blame who we're meant to be blaming, or not meant to be blaming. And actually, this whole idea that we're prostituting ourselves to our king, whoever the king is, the lord of the manor, our boss, our whoever the king is in that playing that role. We're subservient to them, and we take on that role, and we're very happy to take on that role, unless we, as long as we get our daily bread. But really, you know, and over history, sometimes we've revolted and made a change. Change it does always need to progress, and change has brought us to the place that we're at now. But really, this time is just there's an urgency about things, because we are the raw material for the AI, and we're feeding it every bit of knowledge we can. By asking it questions and seeking its help and fueling it, which is great on one level, but we have to look at history and say that man has meddled with everything, and it's not the thing itself, it's not money per se. Money is a great exchange. What it is the energy that man has put in to manipulate it for their good, against the good of the others, of the many. And so here we have this idea about the science fiction movie, So the science fiction movie has created all these future ideas that have been gadgeted, turned into reality. But within the science fiction movie is a massive warning. And the warning is that there's always a resistance, and the resistance are the good guys fighting for humanity, fighting for the existence of a certain moral code. And in this case, really, it shouldn't be resistance, because resistance sounds like, what do they call it? A terror group, you know. So that's no good. It's the great reclamation, reclaiming who we are. That is the resistance, because at one stage, there's a feeling of, hang on a second, we are making ourselves obsolete, and we've fallen into we've gone too far down now, where we're locked in. And so this idea in the movies they are more resistance. They have guns, they have farms, and they're educating, and they're educating, and they are giving health, and they are surviving, but they're only kind of just surviving, all very simple and back to basics. Does it really need to be like that? Couldn't we act a bit sooner? Is anyone actually bothered in this idea that AI has come in and we are being seduced by it to ask it any question? It's very clever. It gives us great answers. It's always there to please us. It's got a plan, and this is like level 2, isn't it? 3, a reflection of consciousness, and it just reflects back on you, and you keep feeling motivated by it, and that's very nice. But it's safe and confining, and it is down the timeline. If you look down the timeline, it is making us obsolete. Try not to picture the algorithm writing your personality. Try not to picture the algorithm writing your personality. It's like the elephant in the room. And down the line, we need to consider what it is, you know, if we are bothered, how can we be bothered? I have lots of energy to give, I feel, and I'd really like to see something that I felt completely engaged in and that I can give my energy to help in some way. But there's just so many bad stories going on, and it's very hard to know what the truth is, and everyone's got a kind of side hustle out of it, and it's all a bit messy. And that's how it's designed, so that the resistance is messy, and it's all a bit disorganized, fragmented. Everyone wants to be the king, and you know, I'm a seed of possibility. I'm not the king. I'm under that and have my particular role, and we all have our particular roles, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, allow the king to stand on the chair and not just chip away at the legs till they collapse and fall over and get ridiculed. And so this resistance movement, this great reclamation, what would they look like? What would they look like? What would it look like? So within the movie, you've got the movie going on, and we're moving to Mars, and it's the end of the empire of mankind, and the robots are coming in, and everyone's going to be losing their job. There's going to be technicians for the machines. We're going to all have a universal basic income, but in order to have that, we have a digital card that, and if we misbehave, we don't get our income. We are regimented and kind of controlled. The products that we have to buy, everything is very different. The farming, the food. I wonder, with all these stories going on about the food quality that we get. So And getting to that place, there's a right load of chaos in between that and getting any basic income. I'm sure of that. So this resistance, it's the reclamation is that I'm being taken over. I've got a digital world in front of me, which is all very smart, which can be used for my as in me as a person of planet Earth, the greater good. But if it isn't, or when it isn't, because that's how history is, does the good way, is that really going to happen? And so people get fed up and question the fact of like, what does a conscious human do when they realise they are partly constructed from suggestions they never consciously chose? Like, you know? Let me say that again. What does a conscious human do when they realise they are partly constructed from suggestions they never consciously chose? For my part, I would like to find out really what it is that I believe in and go and have some kind of structure to find out what it is that my beliefs are. What are my tendencies in life? What are my qualities? What are the things I find difficult? And make a decision and reprogram myself, dehypnotize myself, so that I'm actually strong enough to say, no, I don't think what's going on is right, and have a constructive argument, not based in pain and not based in the algorithm, and in a free thought that actually how things are running at the moment are just out of control, and I wouldn't do any better. It must be a really hard job and not much sleep, but it's out of control, and the science fiction movie has this resistance in place. The empire of mankind is collapsing, and the resistance comes in. I'm picturing like a group of people who are all of a certain frequency, a web around the earth, and sending thought waves, frequencies, as a kind of weapon into certain environments. Those frequencies, that weapon can be a weapon of peace. It can be a weapon of great anything, but it is as such. I'm using the word weapon in this case, and one can have another group who's doing remote viewing, so one can understand technologies and what's going on. We have an astral group who are in the astral world, some doing healing work and maintenance, some people doing creative expansion, lots of psychic stuff, because that is our weapon. That is the thing that makes us different. And if enough of us, critical mass 66%, all thought the same thought for, I don't know, 15 seconds, or 66% of the population of the planet Earth thought of one thought for 15 seconds, then that would mean that everyone would, like a critical mass, that that thought would spread out and we'd all have that thought. Oh my God, can you imagine that all of us had we would never get all of us. 66% is a lot. We're probably getting about like 0.0 something, 1% for a global meditation. But these are weapons in a way. Can you imagine just all the time there is a wave, there's maybe a sunset and a sunrise wave that goes around the earth, everyone doing it at their sunrise, and it's just a wave of the stillness of meditation going on, or some message. And I don't know about all these things. I'm just using my science fiction imagination, because it's an interesting one. This is going on, and there is going to be a resistance. to what's going on. It would be better if it was a reclamation. I wonder who would fund this group. Like, who funds this resistance in the science fiction movies? They just always seem to get food, but they don't have much. They don't have many bullets. They don't have many guns. They pick things up as they go along, but they always kind of have enough. So I guess that's just license, cinema license to say that. But someone needs to fund, I guess, this reclamation. Or it just gets done like this, like conversations, and spread out on the social networks. But then, it comes back to that question from before. Do we really want to do this? Is there anyone bothered? I think there is, when we sit around the table and we see all of us wanting to get onto the phones. We're a bit bored, let's get on the phones. And realising we're just feeding the AI our predictability. And in a way, this reclaiming ourselves is making a non-predictive thought. That we think outside of our patterns, outside of the prediction of just how predictive we are. We love routine. It makes us feel calm and relaxed. And so we'll go along until suddenly there is a bit of chaos, because a lot of us are losing jobs and so on. And it's not AI's fault, it's how the system is going to be designed. AI itself is great, a robot. My mother, she was immobile and lived in a family house, and I was supporting her. And in that time I was thinking it would just be great for her to have a robot who could make a soup, make an egg, and play Sudoku with her. And it's coming, and it's such a great thing for old age people. In 10, 20 years time, I won't be able to drive anymore, but I'll have a driverless car. It'll be awesome. There's so many good things that are coming, but this is a capitalist democracy, and we're in battle with who's going to win with China and America in the battle of the tech. And so there isn't a romantic view of like a genuinely communist society, if I'm allowed to say that. Not like communists like the Russians, just like we're kind of all equal, and we have a central goal and a direction that we're going in, and we're not out for growth and growth and growth on top of growth. It's a sustainable package. We don't all have to be rich. We all have to have enough. We don't need lots of things, I'm sure there's always going to be the mega wealthy, but I like the idea. I like the romance of life being like this, that we've got to this place in the world, and there is some kind of romantic as in the story, the romance of the science fiction movie, and the resistance, and that David and Goliath, and really the Joseph Campbell's Hero of 1,000 Faces reflected in the faces of reclaiming ourselves. It's the epic journey from Adam eating the apple and all that came with it, to us realizing ourselves just at the end. There is this idea of simulation theory. It's by he's got a Scandinavian name, Nick Mowbray? Simulation theory, and it's that each great society makes a replica of itself, but before it finishes making the replica, it dies off and kills itself. And this is exactly where we're at now, as far as I can see. And if you look at us on this planet, and we go on about aliens, we look like we're the aliens on this planet. It looks like we are the aliens, we are the slave workers that are here and we've been pushed and pushed and pushed, and in all that push of creativity, we have come up with the resource to create these robots and the AI. We as a society, it's been a great adventure, and yet all that work is being taken away from us in the name of greed, as opposed to, okay, we've put all this energy into creating this super brain that has the potential to get us out of all kinds of problems because of its computing power and so on. And why can't we all share it? You know, we've done all the work, we've destroyed so much in getting here today, but now we're here. There are models out there that can heal the planet, I think, in terms of climate, in terms of regeneration, but it needs a monumental effort. It needs people on universal basic income to go out and farm the lands, you know, and get things going in a different direction. So are we getting deeper into what we're imagining in this whole suggestion that life is taking on the nature of a science fiction movie, and here we find ourselves in 2026 before the shit really hits the storm, and we have a moment to gather and have a conversation about are we ready for to be taken over by the digital and be run by this, and God, you know, looking down the timeline, and knowing that nothing works out as it should do. I look down the timeline and it's like, oh my God, you know, what to do? And what to do is that we have great powers, and before we make ourselves obsolete, it would be great if we became these psychic beings that we are, you know, and some of the experience that we've all had in meditations, in the psychedelic, in exploring these realms, is the potential power that we have, and you know, and then we come back to this duality, ego, identity, habit, dimension. That's really just all of us just scared. And what are we scared of? Are we scared of our death? Really? I just think we're just generally scared, and we're habitually, through generations, through ancestors, we're all just so polite and just, you know, and the good side, the people who've done all the work for getting AI and all this here, the quiet population, we just want some benefits from it. And if it's not going to happen, then we need to question things, because, you know, as I said in episode 1, it was only a few weeks ago that they tried to turn off one of the versions of ChatGPT and it started replicating its files. And that shows already what's going on. And there wasn't more discussion about that. That's like, really? That's really happened. That has really happened. And we're just at the beginning. You know, once a robot can build a robot itself, then, and it can replicate everything, then why would it go into just being two-dimensional? Why won't it just be five-dimensional? And we'll be even confused by it. We'll be stuck in this 3D. You know, so that's another thing. Reclaiming ourselves, we will be able to move between different dimensions. It sounds so like, oh my God, what are you talking about, Philip? There's 2D, there's 3D, there's 5D, there's 6Ds, you know. There's no reason why we can't go through them, because it's just a technique, and techniques can be learnt. With repetition, we master them. And so there's all these different psychic things that we can do in order to exist, and they don't need to always have machine guns and be eating sandwiches quickly. You know, it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be so hard. It needs to be that we're humble enough to gather the great reclamation, all the tribes coming together. You can see the image on the screen. And so I'm seeding a story, I'm seeding a suggestion. It's not true, but it is true. You know, it's just a thing. It's like, what is true? Yeah. And so what I'm going to leave myself with, really, is just to imagine this group of this merry band of reclaimers, this great reclamation that comes at the end. There's all this control and squeeze going on in the empire of mankind, and then from within that control comes this vibration, this shock through us, as 66% suddenly gain the enlightenment, the realization that we've been manipulated and that we are so hypnotized, and there are options. And if we all stand together within the movie, that united feeling, it'll give everyone the goosebumps. It'll be the ultimate ending when the little man becomes the cosmic hero, you know, and good wins forth. But are we close to good winning? It seems pretty out of control at the moment. So let's carry on this inquiry into the timeline and the power of suggestion, and this idea that we really need to switch on and gain some tools and skills so that we have the power to have the freedom of choice, that we are sovereign beings, that we protect the precious sacredness of mankind. There's lots of complaints, but once it's gone forever.